Family. It's your girl, Kate. And today we have a special episode here on the podcast. And especially for our Patreon community, you guys, because we just had Jason VanRuler, who is an incredible psychologist. He came into our Patreon community and did a special workshop on healing past attachments and past hurts. And it was so good. It was thorough, it was educational, and I know I personally learned so much. So I'm so excited to share this special workshop that we did with Jason with all of you guys. And if you're watching this little clip on YouTube or on our podcast right now and you're not a part of our Patreon community, I want to invite you to be a part of our Patreon community for as little as $5 a month. We do so many fun things every single month, and we do a bonus episode pretty much every single month. You can ask us anything in terms of a coaching question and get specific advice. And it's just a blast in that community and a great way for you to support this podcast if you've never done so before. All right, without further ado, let's get into this with Jason VanRuler. Okay, guys. So we have a special night tonight. We have a good friend of ours, Jason VanRuler, in the house virtually. I wish we were all together in person because that would be a blast. But this is going to suffice and it's going to be amazing. And so Jason, you were supposed to be with us about 2 months ago almost now. Wow. At Camp HOD. And we all know what happened for camp. Thankfully, you did not get on that plane. Oh my goodness.
I was unsure what to do. I was up all night contemplating what to do, and I did not get on the plane.
Praise God, honestly. And then that morning, we lost all service. So it was just chaos. And praise God, we all, the people there, I know some people here were probably there in Asheville, but I'm so glad we all made it out. And I'm so glad you didn't end up making it, for all intents and purposes. But the reality is, you guys, we were so excited to have Jason in person. We couldn't have him in person and any of our other guests. And so tonight we have a special night prepared where Jason is going to share his talk, or one of the things he was going to share at Camp HOD. And, we were like, well, Jason's already prepared this awesome thing for our people at camp. We can't just let that go to waste. We have to do this in some capacity. And so we're doing it here at this exclusive event with you guys. And then, at some point, Jason, we are going to have you in person at one of our events. What do you think about that?
I would love that. I'm all in. That sounds fantastic.
Okay. Well, you guys, if you don't know Jason, he is I'll let you give yourself an introduction. I feel like it's always so awkward when somebody else introduces them. I'm like, I want you to tell us about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. This will take about an hour. So I hope you're all ready. This is my presentation for the night. I will keep it brief. I'm a therapist. So I'm a therapist that works a lot with people who want to have healthier relationships. And that's kind of everybody. So I've got a lot of potential people to work with. But I'm also a person who became a therapist for reasons because I really didn't know how to be in healthy relationships. So just I did it because I felt called to it, but also just out of pure self-motivation to say, like, I don't know how to do this very well, and I don't have a great track record. And so what does it look like to do that? And so I've been married now for quite some time. I've got 3 kids. I've got a private practice. I'm in South Dakota, and I travel quite a bit and speak and work with people. But at the end of the day, my real commitment, no matter what I'm doing, is just to help people show up as their healthy self and then have healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
So good. Do you guys get that? Have people show up as their healthy selves and then show up and be in healthy relationships, which actually so aligns, Jason, with our vision at Heart of Dating. So I love that you said that. Our mission and vision is healthy singles leads to healthy relationships, which leads to healthy marriages. So I feel like there's a good marriage between your vision and our vision right there. I love it. All right, guys. Hey, by the way, as Jason is about to begin his entire workshop, which is going to be so good, please use the chat. We love the chat at nights like this. So this is your time to comment, to share and encourage Jason, as it's kind of fun because we're not in a room together and he can't see he can see some of your faces, but cheer him on in the chat and even be vulnerable and, chat amidst yourselves in the chat. We see so much of the power sometimes at these nights also happening within the vulnerability in the community, even just within the chat. So make sure you guys are using the chat. It's going to be awesome. Hey, Christina. Hey, Tyron. Hey, Gwen. Oh, I said hi to Gwen. Yes, amazing. All right, Jason. Well, tonight you're talking about, and I'm acting like I'm interviewing you, but I'm about to stop talking and just give you the floor. I'm so excited. You're talking about love attachments and past hurts, right? So we're going to go into it, and you guys all buckle up. If you have your notebooks or anything, bring them out right now. And this is the time. So Jason, I'm just going to pass it over to you.
Well, that's fantastic. So I'll share my screen, and I'm going to be going through some slides. And just to kind of preface, sometimes when we talk about things like past hurts and maybe some places we feel kind of broken, that can be heavy and activating. So just kind of be aware of that in yourself. And if I'm talking and something's kind of hitting you funny, just have a sense about you, like, well, what do I need in this moment to be okay? I write all of my talks with the understanding that, like, I don't want to leave you messy and broken when I'm done, but sometimes things hit people. And so if it hits you, like, just be aware of that and just notice it. But I will do my best to be tender about some of these things because they're challenging. So really what I want to talk about is something that's really close to me and something I've experienced, but what do I do when maybe I've been really hurt before, or maybe even my relationship history has been really painful, and I'm kind of coming into relationships not so much excited and confident or courageous, but more fearful and really confused or even unsure about what that's going to look like, if it could look like something for me. So yeah, a little about me. I'm a therapist. I wrote a book. It's called Get Past Your Past. Depending on how poorly this conversation goes, you might need the book. So that's my plug for the book, is if this is really bad, you'll need to buy Get Past Your Past because of my speaking. Married, 3 kids, live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And here's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about attachment. We're going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about what are healthy relationships, and then hope. I think a lot of times we really nail the problems. We're really, really good at talking about what isn't working or what are problems in our life, but we don't talk about hope. And so many people that I work with, they need to have some hope about the future. And so I'm just going to tell you the future is bright. And the reason I know it's bright for each of you that are on here today is because you're all interested in doing it differently. Okay, so not to judge people who aren't, but just to say, like, the fact that you show up in a place saying, I already want to know how to do this better, that just means something, because asking is really the first step to doing it differently. And so I just love that you're here. I'm going to have some time at the end for questions. So if I'm presenting and you're like, man, I really want to ask about this, I would love to answer your question. And we're going to go through a lot. So if you have a question, just save it. We'll definitely cover it. Okay, so I love this picture. It's okay. I'm doing just fine, right? Some of us look at our love life, or we look at our past, and it just feels a little bit like a dumpster fire, right? We just look back and we just go, this is not what I wanted to have happen. And quite honestly, for me, that was my story. I grew up and there was trauma and abuse and all those things. And so I kind of came out of childhood just saying, like, it's okay. I'm doing fine. Even though it was very obvious I wasn't. Okay. And I'm Midwestern. And so we have this Midwestern thing where we just, like, walk it off, right? That's like a very typical thing to say when someone's hurt us, like, have you just walked it off? Walk it off. And so I'm like, I'm just going to walk it off, and it'll all be fine. But the truth is, sometimes we come out of things, or we come out of relationships when we're really hurt and wounded. And it actually requires us to take a look at some things and to change who we are, so that we can do it differently in the future. Brene Brown says trauma survivors often approach love with a guarded heart. They protect themselves from potential pain, but in doing so, they sometimes shield themselves from true intimacy. So the challenge is, if we've been hurt before, sometimes we put up a wall, right? And that wall is great because it seemingly protects us from being hurt again. But the challenge is it also protects other people from coming in. And so even though the wall makes so much sense in our life, it becomes problematic when we want to be in healthy relationship, because healthy relationship is someone saying, I want to know all of you, right? And so let me beyond the wall. And so we're just going to struggle a lot if we have that wall built. So here's some interesting stats. Individuals with a history of trauma can be 2.5 times more likely to report dissatisfaction in their romantic relationships. 30 to 40% of survivors of emotional abuse are likely to struggle with trust and intimacy in romantic relationships. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then 50% of individuals who've experienced trauma are more likely to report trust issues in romantic relationships. Now, why are these stats so accurate? Well, they're accurate because what we've experienced is what we project, right? So if what we've experienced is betrayal and broken trust and hurt, it's very reasonable for us to expect that's going to happen again, correct? Because it's already happened. So it's not this potential thing. It's like I've already experienced that. And so the challenge is, what do you do if you're expecting the worst but you meet the best? Right. So what do I do if I'm expecting the worst, most unhealthy, painful relationship, but then I meet someone who's actually healthy and could engage in a healthy relationship? Well, if I'm not careful, my posture makes it so that it's really hard to have a healthy relationship because I'm kind of wincing all the time. Right. I've been teaching my son to play baseball and he plays violin. So he's not a baseball player. And so when I throw the ball to him, he would wince. Right. Well, it's very hard to be good at baseball if you're afraid of the ball. Right. But if you've been hit by the ball, it makes total sense you'd be afraid. And so what happens is in relationships, we start to look at them with some fear. And that fear actually prevents us from having a relationship with someone who might be willing to have it. Okay, so let's talk about attachment, which attachment is something that's really picked up a lot of steam in recent years. A lot of my content and reels have been about attachment. And just to kind of put attachment in really simple terms, it's got a lot to do with our relationship with our primary caregivers. Okay, and so what that means is typically our parents. And so what attachment is created by John Bowlby, and Mary Ainsworth kind of furthered the research. But to put it into perspective, it was how connected and attached do I feel to the people who are supposed to love me and care for me? Okay. So when you're born as a child, you are completely helpless, right? You are 100% dependent on your parents to live, right? You can't go to the grocery store. You can't, do things for yourself. So you need them to survive. And what Bowlby argued is that if you didn't believe you could trust that your parents would take care of you, that created a wound inside you. Okay, so we'll see this sometimes with kids who are adopted, where they'll get adopted into a really healthy family, and the kids will have a lot of trust issues, and they'll say, "Well, I don't really understand why this is," and it's an attachment issue because if the first lesson you learn in life is that you shouldn't trust the people you're supposed to trust, it's really hard to break that. Okay, and so we kind of spend our whole life going, well, if the people who are supposed to love me no matter what and take care of me no matter what don't, what do I do with that? Okay. And so John Bowlby said that we have these different attachment styles. At that point, there were 3 of them. Mary Ainsworth expanded the research. And so now there are 4 attachment styles. But this was really big, really in the 50s and 60s, and picked up a lot of steam. It's been something that's been revisited lately, just because I think a lot of people are interested in understanding their relationships and how they approach them. So the 4 different types, the first one is anxious attachment. Okay. And people with anxious attachment often fear abandonment and they seek constant reassurance. And this can lead to some clinginess or emotionally intense behaviors. Okay. And I'm going to go through these. And by the way, we're going to talk about some of the things that don't sound so great, but I just want to tell you, like, behind every attachment issue is a superpower. So just know that, like, it's not all bad. It can be used for good, but I'm going to talk to you about kind of how it comes out sideways. So
guys, we're so sorry.
We are so sorry.
Lovey and I apologize personally for the fact that you can only watch the rest of this podcast exclusive if you're in our Patreon community. So what should they do, Lovey?
They should go to patreon.com/heartofdating.
Come and join us on Patreon. It's a great way to support this podcast. And yeah, then you can hear the rest of this episode.
We'll put the link below for you. Love you. Have a great day.
Bye, guys. The Heart of Dating podcast is created by Kate and JJ Tomlin. Shout out to our epic audio and video editor, Scott Caro. We have an amazing Heart of Dating team who helps bring the show to you each week. I want to shout out Kelsey Napier, our Heart of Dating digital marketing coordinator, and Elena Gibson, our brand and community manager. We couldn't do it without them. Now, if you guys have never ranked us or reviewed us on iTunes or Spotify, would you consider doing that? It would mean so much because our podcast can get more discovered and more people can learn how to better date as Christians. Don't we all want that? We launch our podcast each and every week on Wednesdays, so we will see you next week.